Hi, St. Andrews. I'm Dana Leota, and I serve here as director of our Leadership Institute. Now, if you don't know much about our Leadership Institute at St. Andrews, or what we like to call Sally, what we do primarily is we invite young people who have just graduated college into our community for 9 months to work, live, and learn alongside members of the community. Now, quick plug, applications for our next program open up October 1st. So if you know a graduating college senior this year, send them our way. We would love to talk to them about our program. But the St. Andrews Leadership Institute is bigger than just this cohort of young adults that we invite in. Our hope is to help the entire community as a whole to reconsider our role as leaders in the kingdom of God. That as followers of Christ, we are naturally called to be leading. To live as Christ lived means to live counterculturally, to live as a light into culture. And as a result of that, we are leading. We are hosting a labs course. If you've been coming to our Wednesday night togethers, they've been so sweet and fun. Wednesday nights we do dinner, and then we split off into courses. And the St. Andrews Leadership Institute is hosting a labs course that came out of one of our foundational considerations as a leadership institute, which is this concept of faith and work, how our spirituality ties into the work that we do. Whether you're a full-time mom or retiree, a working professional in the business world, whatever it is you do with your days, you are working alongside God in the redemptive work that God is doing right here and now in the world that we live in. So as part of this course, last week, we touched on the concept of calling. And in my preparation for this course, I stumbled upon somebody's writings that stemmed from a verse in Hebrews. And I wanted to share that with you today. In Hebrews, it says, all these people, this is talking about people who had been called by God. From the Old Testament, these characters that had been called by God, and it says all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. These people had heard God's call and had lived faithfully according to it, even though they never actually received the reward that they expected. They never saw the promise to its fulfillment, but they saw the promise from afar, and they welcomed it from that distance, knowing that the work they were doing, their faithfulness, was enough. The writer that I had read his musings on this passage brought up Constantine and this shift in the Christian faith that happened when Constantine legalized Christianity in the Roman Empire and made it the religion of the empire. At one end, it made it accessible to be a Christian. You no longer had to live in hiding as a Christian. But on the other end, it made it really easy to be a Christian. Where previously followers of Christ were living in hiding and had to be really serious about what they believed, now they didn't have to. It was the common culture. I think about my own life. I don't know your life, but where I've lived, in the multiple places I've lived, I've never really felt like a stranger or a foreigner. I've lived around people who look enough like me, who act enough like me, to the point where I've really never felt truly out of place. I think back to these people that had been called by God in that Hebrews passage, these people who lived as foreigners and strangers on earth. I wonder what that was like for them. to not have to make up that feeling, but to be just living the reality of being a stranger and a foreigner. See, to follow Christ, we have to live differently. To be a Christian in our culture, nobody really checks up on that. You don't really have to live that differently to identify publicly as a Christian. Much like that shift in the Roman Empire, we can live as Christians, and part of that is part of the common culture of that experience. It's not that out of place, but to truly follow Christ, to live counterculturally, you're gonna stick out, right? So I don't know what that is in the culture in which you live in. Maybe it's resisting gossip. Maybe it's resisting materialism. Maybe it's something bigger, more profound than those things that are more profound than we realize. Whatever it is, we have opportunities to choose to live differently, to choose to live counterculturally. I want to invite you today to go about your day and consider, what might it look like to live differently, to live as a foreigner, to still engage the culture that you're in, but in a different way that you might stick out, knowing that faithfulness in that moment brings the promise from afar, that you can welcome it from afar, though it may be uncomfortable in that moment. Would we live as people called by God to lead, to participate differently, and to follow Christ at the heart of it all?